let's go ahead and jump into this. Welcome to the Brook Hill Podcast. Our guest today is the Teresa Ferguson. This is yes, that's what I'm talking about. The whole gallery's going crazy, she is a legend. I am so excited and honored that you would be here on the podcast.
Well, I wore my vintage Brook Hill sweatshirt. I don't know how many mornings I would wear this walking down from the cabin because it would be probably a blustery, cold, 75 degrees or something, and so we would need to put it on. So, but thank you for that introduction. I feel honored to be here.
Absolutely. What was your era? What was your years here? Well, when did you start? You were a camper. When did you start as a camper?
I started as a camper in 1979.
Come on.
So, way back in the day. Brook Hill was only 15 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and so just the front of the pavilion was just red, just the metal building, and just not as many cabins. And I was a camper all the way through till so that'd be like, let me try to do the math, 1983, 84. I was a camper for 5 years.
Okay.
And then I was a junior counselor, and then I became a senior counselor in 87, and I stayed as senior counselor from 87 to 93.
Wow.
So I spent 15 years.
Legacy counselor.
Yeah, and then I went to Applied Life Christian College. So the last 2 years, I pretty much just lived here full time.
Come on.
Yeah, so it was a great experience, great time.
I love that. So it's 70. Do you remember what cabins were here? I know a lot of the girls listening would want to know what ones were here at that time.
So there were still the pavilion cabins.
Okay. And do you know the names that were down there?
So the Roans, Chestnuts, and Percherons were in the pavilion.
Original pavilion,
and the side that the Percheron was on, which was this side, also had the staff room, which was an unused cabin.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was awesome because my first year as a counselor, we were in there all the way till my first year as a senior counselor. We were still in that, and there was a little window unit, so it'd be cool in there. But yeah, if it was super hot on the weekend, we'd go in there and turn the lights off and sleep sometimes. But yeah, that was staff room.
That was before it moved upstairs.
Before the upper room.
Which we get, yep.
Yeah, when we finally had the upper room, we thought, this is like we've died and gone to heaven. We've moved to the upper room.
So that wasn't built yet then?
The upper room was
So there was no porch. It was just a flat front on the pavilion.
Front. Yeah, and the bays and the Phillies were not in existence.
Okay.
They came in existence in 87. My first year as a senior counselor, I believe.
Okay.
They might have been there my last year as a JC. I can't remember. But, the Bays and Phillies weren't there.
So basically those back four weren't there. So your Arabians and Galicinos were the end?
Yeah, that was the end.
They were the last?
Yeah.
Okay, so then there was just six on Girls Hill. So you go Palominos, Lipizans, then you go Thoroughbreds, Pintos. And then you've got Arabians, Galicinos. That's it.
That was it.
On the cap.
That was it.
That's crazy. Do you remember the guys? If you were here all year, you probably were back there in the off season.
The Broncos didn't exist back then.
Really?
Yeah. The Broncos, the first time they existed, I believe Brian Cato was the very first counselor of that cabin.
Okay.
So they were not in existence.
Okay, so you're helping win an argument here.
Oh.
So
do I get points for the game later?
Oh, yes. This is going to be bonus points here because the argument was it's Broncos, Walkers, or Mustangs were the original. And I'm a Mustang, okay? Mm-hmm. John Thomas, Tim, all of us were Mustangs. And so the Broncos were trying to say they were one of the original because they were tucked down in there. So it's either the Walkers or the Mustangs.
And I believe, I keep wanting to say it was the Mustangs that was the original one.
That's what I've been saying all this time. Obviously, I got a lot of pride, but
right. Yeah, but the Broncos, no, they came along after all those other cabins.
Okay.
They were the last cabin of the bunch.
Okay.
So anybody who's saying, no, the Broncos were there.
Okay.
No.
All right, Tyler. It is settled. That one is off the list. It's down to 2. But we're thinking Mustangs. I like that. Anyway, that's a personal argument.
Well, I'm glad I can help.
Yes. I love that. So Gosh, tell me some of the things that happened back then that obviously we had lunch this last Monday, you, me, and Elizabeth, just talking about old stories, and it was a 3-hour lunch, and you were just telling so many things that I didn't know that, just things that camp used to be that I had no clue.
Camp has changed a lot. I mean, tremendously. I remember when I came up this summer to talk with the staff, I remember I was just enthralled with like, well, where's that building and where's this building and all the changes you got and the great changes you guys have made. But yeah, camp back then, I mean, just everything from like when we were talking about, we used to do show night. And and every cabin would put on a skit. And some of the skits were super funny, and some of the skits you're like, please God, let it be over soon, you know. And it was. Some of them were just like, oh, I know you guys had to come up with something, but can we?
Yeah.
Can we
and show night was in place. It was on Friday night.
It was in place of Carnival. Yeah.
Could you imagine no Carnival night, Tyler? That's not Brook Hill. That, you know,
it's not. I mean, we were so excited when we finally came back, and they were like, okay, so instead of doing show night, you know, we're gonna do a carnival. And we were first like, what do you mean a carnival? And they were asking us to help come up with the games, you know, and who could do what game, what little game, if it was the fishing booth, if it was the, the marriage booth or whatever, the dunking for apples and all that kind of stuff. And they were asking us to help come up with the games.
Okay.
And so.
Do you remember what year that was? You were a senior counselor?
I was a senior counselor. And so it was either, I was a senior counselor when we still had show night.
So I came here in 1989 as a third grader, and we had Carnival. So I've only known Carnival in 89.
I want to say we started in 88.
Makes sense.
Is when because I know my first year as a senior counselor, we had to do show night, and I remember I was just dreading every week trying to come up with some skit, and then it got to where
miserable.
Then it got to where we were pretty much doing the same skit every week.
Yeah, sure.
You know, because
it makes sense.
The campers hadn't seen it,
right?
So but the counselors every week now we're like, and here comes the skit.
Right. Oh yes. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're trying to act like you're so excited about it.
I love that.
It was bad. One of the things we talked about on Monday was we used to have a concert night. And we would actually, for the 2-week session, we actually bring in an outside band.
Okay.
It wasn't like the counselors were getting up and it was like a souped-up council ring. We actually had, and back then, it was like Sweetwater or whoever,
right,
would come in, but we would have a full-blown concert.
That's crazy.
It was just awesome, though, because we had all that time, and, there was people just to us, so... And they would come in and really show the kid, and especially back then.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't Christian music like there is now.
Okay.
I mean, when I got here, Russ Taff had just left from working here and gone on to be with the Imperials and doing all that kind of stuff. And that's how I got introduced to Christian music. Is one of the counselors was sitting over on the side, and he actually had the forbidden cassette player that he was listening to, and he was just kind of working here at the ranch, and he had been out mowing and stuff, and he was just sitting over on the side. And so I asked him, like, what are you listening to? And I was like a little 5th, 6th grader at the time, and so he put the headset on me and let me listen to the song, the Trumpet of Jesus, by the Imperials.
Okay,
and I was like, this is awesome, and so that began my love for Christian music, but there wasn't really any.
Right.
And so when we would bring these bands in and they would show the campers, like, there's some really good music out there, it really influenced a lot of campers.
That's awesome.
And,
I love that because you get Russ Taff, who was a counselor here, who goes on and becomes a part of the Imperials. Then you've got David Crowder, who was a camper here.
Yeah.
And I remember when his brother Steve was working Turkey Day. We were working Turkey Day together. And he's like, my brother cut a CD. And we were like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then the next year he came back with Love Is Loud that hit it big.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, he's onto something here. But it was cool. It was Brook Hill campers.
Yeah.
Well,
David was one of my campers. Steve was one of my campers.
Really?
And Steve and I were at Applied Life together.
Come on.
And so we went on a mission trip together.
Come on.
And Steve, and but there's other people like Mark Bird who came through here.
So true.
He's written songs that have been picked up by Third Day, and I forget all the others. I mean, but just phenomenal music.
God of Wonders, I believe, was played in the space shuttle. If I remember that correctly, I thought it did. Okay, I may get fact checked on that one by our one person that listens. But anyway, yeah, but that's so cool to see our campers and, go
there
on.
Are so many campers that have gone on to do things, and people that were even junior counselors and stuff like Jim Walker.
Yes.
Is know, he's heading up all the
YWAM
Mercy Ships.
Oh, Mercy Ships.
Yeah.
But
he's
isn't
with
it
YWAM.
Yeah,
YWAM. And they've got all the Mercy, but he married Nico, his wife, and then they had 3 girls, and they've been stationed all over, and now they're stationed in Hawaii, and he is like heading up huge.
So
ministry.
Jim and I grew up together.
Oh, did you?
We're both from Deer Park.
I did not know that.
We went to church together.
Oh, see, I love Mama Walker.
Yeah.
She's got a place in my heart.
So my dad was up the other day, and he told me that's his cousin. So Linda Walker and my dad are cousins.
That's crazy.
It's a small world.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I grew up, we went to church together always, went over to their house a lot. I knew Jim BC before Christ, and so anyway, it's crazy small world.
Yeah, we were at Applied Life together.
That's awesome.
So, and his sister Tammy worked at camp.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, great time, great legacy from this place. You can't go anywhere. I told you a story, I was in Honduras, of all places, and we're down there with Alan Sargent on one of my many mission trips, and he was like, "Oh, we're gonna go minister at this church. There's some missionaries coming in. Everybody just jump in a car, and it'll be great, and we'll get there fine." I jump in a car, and this girl goes, "You taught me horseback at Brook Hill."
In Honduras.
In Honduras.
That's nuts.
I was like, you got to be kidding me.
That is nuts. Okay, so are you wanting to play a game real quick, Tyler?
Oh, sure. I was talking about the space shuttle.
The
space shuttle. We've been fact-checked.
Multiple space shuttles have had that song played. Pretty common to look out the window and to aspire.
Brook Hill Camper writes a song.
That is awesome.
It's in the space shuttle.
Yeah.
Let's go. Fact-checked right there. I love it. Thank you for that,
That's
Tyler.
awesome.
We'll play the game at the end. We'll do that. We'll do that to close it out. That'll be fun. So, okay. So the mission trips. Tell me about this. You spoke here this summer. Oh my gosh, you were so great in staff meeting. The counselors loved you, and that was where I got to hear how many mission trips you've been on. Tell me about that.
So I've been on 30 mission trips.
30.
Yeah.
Mission trips. Like where?
Oh, so. To start off with, I'd always grown up at Brook Hill and heard about Belize.
Okay.
And I always wondered, like, man, that must be fun, because back then, all the lost and found clothes, for everybody out there that's wondering what happens to them,
right?
We would box them all up and take them with us to Belize. And we'd go to the orphans.
Yep, I love
that. So they would get all the clothes that were left here.
Yep.
And so after my first year at Applied Life.
Yep.
They were talking about going. Alan Sargent was like, "We're going to go down to Belize on a mission trip," and I was like, "I've heard about this. I'm going. I'm in," and fell in love, and went on 16 different trips to Belize.
Wow.
The longest we stayed there was a 3-week trip, building a church for a Garifuna tribe on the coast, and then I've been to Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala. My farthest trip has been Africa.
Okay.
And spent a couple of weeks in Africa and had a phenomenal time. And thanks to Alan Sargent on my early trips, he always had that instant in season.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever been around Alan, but he'll, you better be ready to minister like that.
Absolutely.
You better have, get the sermon out of the back pocket, and you got to be ready to go. And after enough of those trips, we ended up in Africa, and they took us, me and these 2 girls, there's only 5 of us on that trip. They took us to this church, and they were introducing us, and we were doing all this, meet and greet and stuff, and so we didn't think anything about it. And then the ladies were like, "We are so excited that you're here." And we were like, "Well, we're excited to be here." And they were like, "Yeah, and tomorrow morning, when you guys get here for Vacation Bible School, just to reaffirm, it's all yours." And we were like, we got a week of Vacation Bible School? You want us to, yay? we got back to our host house, and the other two girls were looking at me like, what are we going to do? And I was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to teach them about this week, and we're going to do this, and we're gonna like teach them this kind of stuff and this song and do this with them and these kind of activities. And so we like literally planned it out that night, a whole week of Vacation Bible School. And we taught them the song, Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord.
Yes.
And we sang it, we taught it to them, and they loved it. It was real big then, and they sang it for the church, and everybody loved it. But they would sing Wopen, Wopen the eyes of my heart, Lord, instead of open. But it was cute and everything. And I swear that song has followed me for decades now.
Okay.
I mean, it's like every mission trip I go on, somebody is singing that song, or I'll be driving down the road and it comes on because somebody did a remake of it.
Come on. I love it.
Please, Lord, I should have picked another song.
I love it. But they threw that on you.
Oh, yeah.
To do VBS, but you were ready. You're like, I know how to deal with kids. I know how to I know how to put something together. I know how to,
It was Brook Hill.
Yeah.
It was, and kudos to Alan Sargent for, I used to give everybody a heads up on our trips, like, be prepared to teach on Sunday. Because the very first trip I went on, we got through with church. They do church, and then they do Sunday school.
Right.
And we walked out of church, and Alan was like, you're going to go to this class and teach, and you're going to go to this class and teach, and you're going to go to this class and teach. And so we had the walk of shame from there to the classroom to figure out what we were going to talk about for 45 minutes.
Right. Yep.
And I'm sure that first lesson was not pretty. I mean, it was.
I love that.
It was probably bad.
And you went on a lot of trips with Connie. Connie's our legacy. Served in the kitchen for over 30 summers. We're gonna have her here on. At some point, probably this year.
Yeah.
And I know you talked about y'all were Concrete Connie or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys poured so much concrete, and
we poured 27 cubic yards, which is 9 of those big cement mixer trucks.
Come on.
Is what it equals. So we
in one trip.
In one trip. And Connie had so much cement dust on her, we thought she was just going to harden on the spot. And she picked up the nickname Concrete Connie. And we had 2 5-gallon little mixers, and it was like we would rotate. So many shovels of gravel, so many shovels of sand, so many shovels of, the cement, and then add water, mix, dump it in wheelbarrows, and run it to, its location. And I don't know how much concrete I have poured and holes I have dug in foreign countries. It's just, I think that's all I do sometimes. I went to Guatemala with Cindy May. Cindy May was my senior counselor.
Come on.
And so when Applied Life started doing just students only going on the trips, and I couldn't go anymore, it's very sad about that. But I know.
That is sad. What a terrible rule.
I know. But I was in touch with Vicki May, who I was a camper with and everything, and then her older brother Terry was a senior counselor here. His wife, who he met at Christ for the Nations, she was a senior counselor here, taught me horseback. I got reconnected with them, and we were sitting in a hotel room talking, and we started talking about missions, and she was like, well, come to Guatemala with us. And I was like, and I'm there. Anywhere anybody wants me to go, I'm there.
Awesome.
But we dug footers one time for a building, and they were like, it needs to be, go down 6 inches. Okay, 6 inches. So we dig this huge long. We had it was probably 150 or more linear feet that we had to dig in this hard clay. So we dig all that up, and they come back and they're like, oh, 6 more inches, 6 more inches. And we're like, okay, so we dig another 6 inches and we get it all out, and then they come back, and they kept coming back and coming back and coming back, and they were like 6 more inches, 6 more, and 6 more inches now is like the joke of that mission trip.
Yeah.
Because when it got through, you couldn't see Cindy standing in the hole.
Wow.
She's a little bit shorter than me, but you couldn't see her. It was
wow.
We had to climb out of the hole and get there. And at one point, I was like, "Do you guys have a backhoe or something?" And they were like, "Oh, see, it's Teresa, it's Cindy," and I'm like, "That ain't funny. That ain't funny."
I love it.
We're gonna throw dirt over our heads, and come to find out, they were just so wrong, because the next team that came in to actually pour the footers went, for the love of God, is this going to be like a 20-story building? I mean, they were like, they made us do it. And then, sadly, they had to, fill the holes back in to a certain point. It's like, Thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I appreciate that.
But through all these trips, you acquired a lot of skills.
I did.
I mean, you can do. I mean, what all can you do now from?
If I had to, I could build my house from the ground up.
Wow.
One of the trips with Alan, we were going to build the bathroom there at the school.
Okay.
There in Belize, and Alan threw on me the night before. Stub out. The foundation is ready to pour, but we need to stub in all the plumbing for the bathroom. And so I was like, huh? What?
Right.
What are we gonna do? And he was like, and it's all you. And I was like, okay, great. And so I'm having to figure out like how far from the hole of the toilet to the back of the toilet, and then there's the wall, and then the wall's gonna be this thick, and then to the next one. And, to make sure we don't have the girls' toilet is not in the boys' bathroom.
Right.
That'd be a bad thing.
Right, right,
So I stubbed that in. But the way I'm turned, every time we would take a trip, I would get with whoever the skilled laborer was.
Okay.
And I would get with them and like, oh, it's a transit, and how do you use it? And look through it, and, oh, this is how you find your grade, or this is how you find the pitch of a roof, or whatever. And just... For me, I was just like absorbing like a little sponge, and so now I can take this countertop, this tabletop here, and make it look like granite.
Wow.
And do like an overlay or something. And I got a little handyman. We're remodeling my whole house and the outside, but I love doing that.
Come on,
that's my happy place.
Right.
Is building, and mission trips. I like building.
But you learned that from walking through doors of opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So many times I see people who turn down opportunities or won't step up into something. They asked you to go to Guatemala and you were like, okay.
Yeah.
And you were there, but look at what God taught you along the way. Even from things as small as becoming a junior counselor, becoming a senior counselor, and then sure, I'll stay again, or I'll do another summer. Or, all right, I'll go on that mission trip, or I'll go on this. But look at who you are today because of the doors you walked through, the opportunities you have. And so many people, well, God can't use me, or God won't use me, or I'm not good enough. But what opportunities are you turning down? That God has told you to step up and be a part of, and look at, it's amazing.
The things that I've seen on mission trips, and I know we talked about, one, I'll share that in a minute, but one of the most impactful things I ever experienced, we were in Guatemala, and we were going to build these houses for some people.
Okay.
And we were going to divide up into teams, and the house was a 10-foot by 10-foot room.
Why?
So smaller than the room we're in now. And but the lady we were going to build it for, we come to find out later, one of the girls was a photographer, and she was taking random pictures in the marketplace one day. Actually took a picture of the woman that we were building the house for the next day. When we started looking at her slides later, we were like, that's the woman we built the house for.
Wow.
But when we were building this house for her, it was this slat that we built up, and we put the roof on, and we built a bed and a chair and a table for her. And there's a door and a window on it, and had a little lock. And but as she was way over in the distance, and as the day wore on, and the house got further and further up, and then we were on the roof, and she got closer, and she'd bring her chair closer and bring her chair closer, and it was like anticipation. And she was 70-something years old. And the way they do it is we build a house, we give them a basket of food, and we say, this is from Jesus.
Wow.
And if she wants to talk more, we talk more. If she doesn't, then we're out of there, and the local missionaries will keep contact with her. And she was Mayan, and she spoke Quiché, which is this Mayan dialect. And the villages up in the mountains there all speak different dialects of that. And so we had to find somebody who spoke that Quiché and could translate to Spanish, and then it had to be translated from Spanish to English for us. Long conversation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like, sounds like, too, yeah. But she began to relate us this sad story of her life, and had never had a house, and her husband had beat her, and how her, she'd get beat in her head, and just this emotional story. And by the end, she is laying prostrate on the ground weeping, thanking God. And I am just like, I could cry right now thinking about it. And I was just looking at people like, somebody shoot me right now because this is so emotionally overwhelming. And just the thankful heart she had. And then you come back and you go, I got a 2,000 square foot home or a 3,000 square foot home or whatever you have. And go, she was laying prostrate before the Lord over a 10 foot by 10 foot home. And how well we have it here. And so that just always spoke so much. Like, everybody needs to go on a mission trip.
I had always heard that, and I've been on one, so I haven't been on 30. I've been on one.
But you went.
I did. I went to Honduras.
Okay.
And
with Alvin?
With Alvin.
Love Alvin.
And with Alvin, I never left his side.
Oh.
I never. There was one moment where Alvin. This is how Jesus Christ like Alvin is.
Oh.
He said, I got to make a stop. There's a guy that I change him and help him bathe and put him in bed. And we're like, what?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to stop. Y'all stay in the car. And I said, no, I know about Honduras. I know about the crime. I go where Poppy Alvin goes, right?
Yeah.
I go where he goes. Tim and Mike stayed in the car. I went with Alvin. And he wouldn't let me go into the inner room where he was helping the guy. It was the worst smell I've ever smelled in that place. And Alvin just loving the people, and I just thought, wow, how ungrateful have I been, right? How spoiled are we? How petty are we when, I mean, it puts life in perspective. And you're right. They're all 10 by 10 huts. I mean, they're all mostly dirt floors, at least in Honduras where we were. And I don't know if that's where you were building what you were building, but
that building happened to have a little cement slab.
Okay.
But most of the places we go, it's a dirt floor. But they'll take pride in that dirt floor. And
it's
that
theirs.
Dirt floor is clean.
Yeah, sure.
There's not junk on it and everything on it. We went through, in Guatemala, we went to the dump. And the dump it's the old dump that's been packed down enough, and then the government allows them to build houses on it, and it's all cardboard and whatever,
goodness.
And they're all daisy chained together. And we went through there, and there was some specific homes that we were handing out food toward. And they were the most hospitable people. And they were like, come in. And we have one bottle of water. Do you want it? And we're like, no, we're good.
Right.
And again, shoot me. Now,
right.
Shoot me. And that sadly was the place, I don't know if you remember, that a flood came and wiped it all out. And it was like we were just there 2 weeks earlier walking among these people. And now all their homes are gone.
Everything they had, which was that.
Gone. Yeah.
Wow.
And so there's so many lessons I've learned, and the story that we told on Monday, it was a trip we took with Alan, and Chris and Delane Chonoff were there, and Katie and Betsy were there, the twin girls, and most of the Allen crew, Sergeant crew, was there with us, and we had taken this church group down with us, and we were there for 3 weeks on the beach in Hopkins, and the girls had a little house we were staying in, and there was so many of us. Like me and a few other girls slept out on the front little not enclosed, but little had railing porch. I slept in a hammock for 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, but you wake up and there's the ocean, and you're like, that's awesome. But one of the first nights we were there, I woke up because there was drums playing down the beach, and I was like, who's having a freaking party? This is crazy. We got to get up in a little bit, and I looked, and Delane was up, and so we were quietly talking. We were trying to figure out who's having the party, and so finally we were like, all right, we'll just try and go back to sleep, and none of the other girls had woken up. So the next morning we wake up, and we're told by the pastor the drums were the local Dagu, the voodoo. The witch doctor had come to town to do battle against the Christians. And we were like, that is insane, to hear their drums beating and knowing now, they were doing their incantations and stuff. And so we had talked about it and stuff, and just the enormity of the spiritual battle taking place. And true to form, Alan Sargent gets us, And it was either that night or the next night. I can't remember. But he was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get the whole team, and we're going to go march around that temple 3 times and pray over it. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I was just like, oh, okay, everybody get prayed up. Because here's where the faith rubber hits the road right here. And so we went. And we marched around it 3 times, and I was bringing up the rear of the group, and I spent my time praying over the kids. I knew where the sergeants were spiritually. I knew where Chris and Delane and all them were. I knew where I was spiritually. I didn't know where these kids were.
Right.
And so I'm like, I'm just going to pray a hedge of protection over our team is going to be my job. And we didn't hear any more drums the rest of our trip. But then when we came back the following year, we got an update on everything. And that's where it was like getting really interesting because their incantations didn't work against the Christians. And the church is going up and the church is growing. And so they decided we're going to do battle on a new ground. So they tore their temple down and built it next door to the church. And they were doing their, the witch doctor would come in and it just wasn't working. So they would tear the building down and rebuild the building again and tear it down. And it was just like this insanity thing here because they thought maybe they got a thatch wrong on the temple somewhere. And it just, that's where they were not pleasing their gods. And so once that didn't work, they were like, okay, new battleground. We're going to tear it down, move across the street from the pastor, and that's where we're going to do our battle. And again, didn't work. And so God has prevailed, and that church has grown. Because when we built that church, we built it around the structure around the existing church was made out of these little sticks.
Okay.
It was a stick church. And so that church is still thriving and doing great.
Come on.
And yeah. So God wins. #.
I love that.
I mean, great experiences.
Oh my gosh.
At the time, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go.
Right. Right.
It's.
But looking back, you're like, little victory there,
Oh, big victory there.
Yeah.
I mean, just awesome. So,
come on.
Anyway,
that's incredible. I love that.
Lots of stuff. Okay, what's the next question?
Yeah, so another thing really cool about you is you're a pilot.
I'm a pilot.
You love airplanes. You fly. How long you been flying? What got you into flying? And you have your own airplane or airplanes?
I just got one.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd wanted to fly for a while, and my stepsister's husband, he was a pilot, and I had talked with him and stuff, and I was always interested in getting it. And then I had a small phase of my life where I'd get on a commercial flight, and it was like freaking me out. And I was like, I don't like this feeling, and I know how I'm going to overcome this feeling. I'm going to go be a pilot.
Of course, that's the natural. That's the natural.
Not that I'm going to stay on the ground. I was like, you know what? Because I had wanted to fly, and then I was aggravated at myself that it was the commercial flights were making me feel so uncomfortable. And I was like, you know what? If I have the knowledge,
right,
then there comes that wisdom, and then there comes that peace. And
good.
So if I go get a pilot's license, now I know the aerodynamics of the plane and how it operates. And the plane actually wants to fly. I keep hitting this thing. The plane wants to fly. It's us that mess up. It's kind of like God.
Gotcha. Yeah.
God's that plane.
Come on.
He wants to get us there. He wants us to have a smooth flight. We're the ones that mess it up.
Right.
We're the ones that crash it and everything. Right. And so
good.
It's only been 1.5 years since I've had my pilot's license.
Okay.
I started working on it, and then I actually, before I soloed, I bought a plane. And because my instructor would let me train out of mine, so I was like, why not learn how to fly my own plane? And so that set me back on my soloing, which it was fine. Some people get a big, burr about how many hours was it before you soloed? And I was like, yeah, but I started over pretty much because I got a different plane.
Right.
And they have different characteristics.
Okay.
But anyway, got a first plane, got my pilot's license. That was just, I actually invoked the name of Hetty on my test flight.
Okay.
I was with this feisty examiner.
Okay.
I mean, she was like 4'5". She had to sit in a little booster seat so she could see over the dashboard in the plane. And finally, but she's 80-something years old. And I finally said, you remind me of, a woman who mentored me named Hetty Lou Brooks. And I just kind of shared with her for a moment. Well, there's a part in the test, you have to take the plane up, get nose high, and make the plane stall. The stall warning sirens are going off.
No,
and
I can't do that.
The plane will break over, and it'll almost start going in a spin, and you have to do spin avoidance. And I was like, look, my plane, on one of the ways you stall it, it'll just shudder. It won't break over. It won't do a hard break and turn. And she goes, oh, that's okay. I got this. And I was like, oh, Father, help me. So we get up at altitude, and we're going, and she's like, okay, all your friends are here seeing you. And I've got the plane, and the stall warning's going off, and so screaming in the plane. And she's like, oh, look, it's your friend Hetty. She's on the ground down there. Let's wave at her. And she grabs the yoke, turns it, and my plane goes, oh! And I was like, oh, Lord, help me.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. But I avoided the spin, popped it out, and it was all fine. But it was just one of those moments you go, Father, help me. I mean, and don't invoke the name of Hetty at this moment.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know, most people don't approach their fears that way. Now, I think it's probably a very healthy way to approach your fears, but most people, I mean, you went from being a little nervous about being on a commercial flight to stalling and spinning and
yeah.
That, Ty, I don't know about that. That's,
So, yeah, I have a different plane now.
Okay.
And some of my friends are like, you own a plane? And I'm like, and let's be real here. My first plane was a 1979 Archer, and I was paying $350 a month for it.
Okay.
So planes, you can get a plane and be paying a car payment
right.
for it.
Sure. That's cool.
I mean, and that's what I'm doing right now. I've got a Piper Saratoga. It's a 6-seater. It's a turbo, so it goes a little faster.
Okay.
And but yeah, I took it on a night flight last night, and hadn't been on a night flight in a little bit. Gorgeous moon.
Where'd you go? Did you?
Well, since I hadn't done a lot of night flights in a while,
Okay.
we just decided I was stationed in Morrilton. We popped over to Conway, and there was another trainer in the air, and since it was just us at night, we were giving each other a hard time.
Nice.
I'd be waiting to take off, and we're waiting on him to come in. So we're like, get that session on the ground. Do we need to push you? Come on, you're taking too long. And and he would land, and he was like, I'm just going to sit on the runway, make you wait. And so
That's awesome.
it was a lot of good fun, bantering, and a lot of good, because when you fly at night, so there's nothing. And the lights, it's the first time I ever did it, we mistakenly picked, this is when I was doing my private, this airport way out in the middle of nowhere in Texas. And you see the beacon light going, so you can easily find the airport. It's a lot easier to find an airport at night because that beacon light is
Okay.
going. But when you get there, you key your headset, and it turns the lights on for you. It's not like flying into Little Rock or something when it's all lit up like a big city.
Okay.
It is 2 rows of Christmas lights in a black abyss.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you're just like, because that's what I called it. I was like, what is that? And the instructor's like, that's the runway. And I was like, what?
Awesome.
Yeah. We got all the way down. My very first landing ever, we got down, and we were probably 50 feet or more above the runway. And it just, the look and the feel and everything is so off. And I finally said, I'm either going to throttle up and go around, or you can take the plane and land so I can see what's going on. And so he took the plane, landed, and once we landed that first time, I was like, oh, I got it.
Okay.
I got it. So we did some night stuff last night, but it was gorgeous. I mean, the red moon, and just, it's
I love it.
so fun. And I've taken my dogs with me. And,
That's so fun.
one of my dogs, he doesn't like loud noises, so he's in the back terrified. My little guy looks at me like, I'm going to kill you when we get out of here. And then I got a big poodle puppy dog that he spent the whole time looking down like, that is just awesome. like these are crazy times.
And you flew over Brook Hill the other day, right?
I did. I buzzed the ranch. It wasn't during camp, but
Right.
I did a few donuts right over here in the pavilion area.
Okay.
And looked at things, and so I'll probably buzz the ranch next summer during camp.
That's so much. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Maybe throw a roll of toilet paper out the window or something.
I love it.
Let
You
it
know,
come down.
one of the things that you're really passionate about is adoption.
Yes.
And I know, we talked a lot about that at lunch the other day. And, we got a lot of kids that are in need of adoption. And, I know we've got a lot of alumni who are in various forms of that process, and I would hope we'd have some alumni that could, really start to help this process. But it's not an easy process. A buddy of mine, Tim Barton, him and Gabby tried to adopt through the system.
Right.
And they couldn't. Right. I mean, you couldn't or haven't so far been able to. They ended up adopting because someone saw their post on Facebook. It was more of, what do you call that type of?
It's a kinship.
A kinship.
It's just called a kinship. It's for if we're related, but even if you're not related, they call it a kinship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been 4 years since I've been licensed to adopt and trying to adopt. And that was down in Texas. Now now that I'm in Arkansas, I'm gonna get relicensed here.
Okay.
But my hope and prayer is, even if God doesn't bless me with a child,
sure,
working with Elizabeth and some other people, because I laid out a way that we can get kids out of the foster care system.
Right.
And so my prayer is I can also get in front of the right people.
Come on.
And get that plan in action, and get the foster care system cleaned out of these kids that have been there for 5 and 10 years or more, waiting to be adopted and just sitting.
Right.
Because we can get them out. We can get them adopted.
Because the need is there. There are kids in the foster system. There are kids that need a family. They need a home. They need a place. And it doesn't make sense. You would hate to think that there are people blocking that for financial reasons, or hopefully it's just a broken system that needs fixing. You would hate to think that there were people behind it. Obviously Brook Hill being a kid-centered organization, we love kids and want to help kids. Right. And so that's why, I love that you're passionate about this, because, I mean, gosh.
Well, what people don't realize is 80% of the kids that age out of the system, like they can, in Texas, they can stay until 21, but at 18, most 18-year-olds are like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this. But of the kids that age out, 80% end up on the streets.
Wow.
80%. And you can adopt a kid. I mean, you could adopt a kid at 18 and give them a home. And in Texas, if you spend one night in under social services care, then any in-state tuition is paid.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, here's a tip. Somebody just send your kid.
Yeah. Right.
No, just kidding.
Sure.
But people are like, well, but see, these kids, they could go to college. And I'm like, yeah, their tuition is paid.
Right.
Their room's not paid. Their books aren't paid. Where do they go on Christmas break? Where do they go on summer break? Unless they make friends with somebody that they can go to their home.
Right.
But, how are they going to pay for food and housing and all that? All their tuition is paid, and that's great, and that's phenomenal. That's going to help them. They need more help than that. And so a lot of them don't think like, oh, I'll just go in the military or something, somewhere where I can have a home.
Right.
They end up on the streets. And so now we're like, oh, how can we have this homeless crisis? Because we're not taking care of these kids. And these kids are ending up on the street, and then they live a lifetime on the street. And they don't care. They're just like, well, it's just me.
See, I think a lot of people, when we look at the homeless crisis, because, I mean, that's been on the news a lot lately, I think we think of people with families that maybe they're choosing that, or maybe they've been ostracized by their family, but there are people without families. They literally have nowhere to go. They have no other options.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing how many kids are out there who need a home. And I know that, so there's a boy in Oklahoma. He was getting ready to age out of the system, and they put a plea out for him and said, here's this young man. He's 18. He's about to age out of the system, or he's about to turn 18 and age out of the system. He's straight A student. He's a sweet kid. He's a good kid. The foster parents had done all they can with him, like making sure he matured into this wonderful guy. And but he wants that forever home. Over 200 people applied to adopt this guy.
That's awesome.
It's awesome, but it shows how broken the system is.
Right.
It shows how many people are out there. Okay, so now only one person got that. Why didn't you social workers jump on those 200 people and let's clean out some more of the foster homes?
Right.
And praise God for these foster parents, because I can't do fostering. I know in myself, I can't have a puppy and give it up later. Right. Much less.
That's a different ministry. That's a different heart. It's a different calling. Not everybody's called to adopt. Not everybody's called to foster. But the ones who are, it's their niche that they're.
If I had a foster kid and I knew the mom was coming back to take him in what situation he was, I'd be like, hop in the plane, we're out of here. We're going to police.
Right, yes, too tempted, yeah, right.
I know my heart.
Right.
And so I know that's where I've got to, like, just keep that, no, I can't. Because everybody's like, we're just foster. And I'm like, I can't do it.
Right.
I would spend my whole time, like, in tears in my closet or something because, when knowing they would have to go back to a bad situation.
Obviously, to compare, I'm not comparing kids to animals, and obviously kids are way more valuable, but you see it the same with animals. They just sit in there, but then when someone posts on social media, you get 200-300 that go adopt that one dog, and so, there's got to be a way, and, I know that you're going to work on something in the background, but that would be so cool. I can't wait to see, what God does through your heart, whether God, brings someone for you to adopt or whether you change the whole system. I mean, I think it could be a really,
Yeah. Or both.
Or both. Or both.
Yeah, that would be like...
Have it all. Yeah, let's go.
Perfect situation there. But I really, prayerfully, I'm going to be able to get in front of the right people with this idea.
Absolutely.
And get all the balls rolling. And,
Absolutely.
And get people adopted. Get them in their forever homes and get them in the right places and get them loved on.
Come on.
I mean, and get them where they need to be.
Absolutely. And I would say to any of our alumni listening on the podcast, if you have any ideas or connections, obviously connect with Teresa on Facebook. She's on there, Teresa Ferguson. But, I know that this could be a really cool thing. I loved our conversation on Monday. And, of course, that stemmed from this summer where I was like, all right, we got to start connecting some people here because I think this could be a real change. So
I think it could too. And the good thing about this, it's a software program that I want to write. It can be adopted throughout other states.
Come on.
I mean, get it going in Arkansas, get it up and running, prove that it's good, and then morph this thing into other states, and now you've got interstate communication going that's more readily there.
Yep.
So you can actually know, here's little Susie, little Johnny, whoever, who's been in the system for 10 years. Let's get him out of the foster system and get him
Absolutely.
adopted.
Yep.
And get that word out across the United States. Right now, it's up to the prospective parent to go search all these sites and go put in information, and it's just such a broken system.
Yep. And it's a shame because we're talking about kids' lives here.
Exactly.
And, at Brook Hill, we are huge on kids.
Yeah.
And that's why when you talked about this summer, what if Arkansas was the place that it started?
Right.
And then it went to other states. And I know that that's possible because I've seen what Elizabeth's done with the CAC. Mm-hmm. She got connected with the governor here in Arkansas. And then, of course, she took it, the governor's wife, she took it and to other states. And then they started forming that. You never know. And that's me. I'm a connector. I'm a networker. And so I'd love to see, through our network, see, something happen there. And,
yeah. Absolutely.
Hetty talks about building your own Brook Hill. Mm-hmm. That was Hetty. I don't know if she talked about it back then.
Absolutely.
She's massive about it, my time here. And all the alumni we've talked to, from you to everybody, that's what you guys have done. And that's what you've done, whether it's been on the mission field, whether it is through this ministry here of what God's doing through adoption and who knows, but you are literally continuing what you learned here at camp. Mm-hmm. To this. And so what would you say here to kind of bring this together? What would you say the legacy of Brook Hill has done in your heart toward, when you went to missions, as you've gone through this process of adoption and God put that on your heart, and now that you're going to go through this, and what do you think the Brook Hill legacy has built in you and meant to you? Could you even quantify that?
Yeah, I can quantify it in one word, and it's Jesus.
Come on.
I mean, that's what Brook Hill is. It's sharing Jesus.
That's right.
And if I'm in the mission field, it's sharing Jesus. If I'm going to be adopting a child, it's going to be raising them up in Christ's love and raising them up to love Christ.
Come on.
And anything I do. And last night we were flying and we were looking at the moon and everything, and I was like, man, God, my mom was like, God hung that moon. When I was talking to her about it, and just looking at the awesomeness of God in everything you do. And, I mean, Brook Hill, in a word, is Jesus.
So is this the place where you found Christ, or you were discipled in him from Hetty, from your counselors?
So I came to Christ, at home.
Okay, sure.
But so I didn't come to Christ here, but I was so mentored, and I learned so much, and of course, then going to Applied Life.
Yeah.
Learning. I took 2 years after college to come in and just learn about Christ and learn about God and just all that He wants for me. And so, I was so mentored here. And taught and just nourished and you just drink it in every year you come, and that's just one of the and that's one of the other things you come. I was telling my friend Cindy May, the one who used to be my counselor, I said, man, I need to go to your house because the love of God is there, and I can just go and I just want to go up there and sleep for a week, and and when you enter those people's houses that have the love of God, there's that peace there. I had friends that used to come out when I lived over in Perrin. I had a hammock out in my front yard and stuff, but I would have friends that would call me on the phone and be like, I'm going to go out to your house and hang out. I wouldn't be there. But they would want to go because of the peace that was there. And, and that is, you can tell when you're walking into a brother or sister in Christ's home and you feel that love of God when you hit the threshold.
So true.
I mean, you know it. You feel it. And so learned so much stuff I learned about the Holy Spirit, I learned from Hetty and just prayer and how to effectively pray.
Yeah.
And everything, even like one of my favorite classes at Applied Life was God and Government that John Thomas taught.
Yeah.
And that was a great, class. I mean, not God and Government, History of Modern Thought. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, John. Quoted the wrong class. History of Modern Thought, because we went through all the different belief systems and all the different, if it was science or theology or whatever, and breaking everything down. So, Brook Hill has so nourished and fed my spiritual, side.
Come on.
It's just great. And then they've taught me other things about, even consistency and being loyal and always being dependable and, always being somebody you can call on and count on and stuff, because you always had that consistency when you came back. I loved when I would come to camp, and it was, a lot of people are like, it's the same all the time. I'm like, yeah, but a lot of people, there's a lot of campers out there who come from such a hectic or maybe even an abusive home, that somebody might come from, and they come in and they feel that love and they have that consistency there. It's not chaos. Sometimes we have controlled chaos here.
Right. Carnival.
But Brook Hill, in a word, is Jesus.
Come on.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we finish here, we got to play a game.
All right.
And so we really kind of have two categories here. We have alumni and then current counselors that we have on the podcast.
Okay.
And the alumni took the lead from the current counselors. So here is, this is, now you don't have, so Lindsay Callan was the reigning leader. Lindsay has 30, so she has taken over. And then a lot of those, actually, alumni is also in fourth. Stewart is alumni. So let's see if you can get it. All right, here's how the game works.
All right.
So you're a pro. You're here. You're on the legacy wall. You know it. You got three categories to name as many things as you can. Camp songs, and also don't worry about it being now or old. So if it's what you guys did in your era, that's fine. Okay, so because I had somebody say, "Well, I don't know if this activity is still here." Doesn't matter. Just name Brook Hill activity. So, so it would be the three things are Brook Hill activities, cabin names, or camp songs, and it can be any camp songs that we have. All right, so you got 30 seconds to name as many, and you can flow between those three activities. Stay on one, whatever you want to do. It's Brook Hill Trivia. It's a Brook Hill Games, Brook Hill Podcast. Here we go. There's going to be.
Let me like.
I'll get stretched out here.
Stretch out. All right.
All right. From the 70s, you get a little extra time. That's the way. That's the way that it works.
Limber up
little
a
handicap here. All right. So we have 30-second timer. When it throws up there, you can begin.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. So roans, Percherons, chestnuts, bays, fillies, thoroughbreds, pintos, palominos. I said Percherons, I think. So we got Under the Bamboo Tree, As a Deer, As the Father I Adore You, the Skidmore Green theme song. We got archery, horseback, pellet rifle, go-karts, jet ski. We used to be there, bumper boats, the big bouncy thing now. We got evening activity of fish and derby.
Oh, is it unofficially 20?
1920s.
1920. Okay, all right.
I got a little.
Yes.
And I didn't want to look at the boys' cabin name there and cheat. Coulda.
You could have actually. Yeah, that is actually sitting up there. We learned that one time, and we covered it. We cover it for our current counselors. Our alumni can have a little boost. We get. I love it.
No, I started getting. I was like, I know these, and I got all off.
It's so fun. Well, Teresa, we are so grateful that you would take time to be here on the podcast. You know, you were one of my counselors as far as I think you were running the horseback, or maybe were, you were probably a senior counselor in '89. So,
yeah, I was.
So, I was a camper, and this is your legacy. Me, Lindley, Melissa, we were campers when you were a counselor. And so, whether you were our direct counselors, you were part of, we're your fruit. So that is amazing. Oh, wait, can we throw one more picture up there real quick, Tyler? I got to throw this up here. This, as we were doing some work. We removed the lockers, and we found some graffiti from 1990. I guess that's Matt Bolding, obviously T. Ferguson, you, James Steen, and the myth, the man, the legend, Brian Cato, right there. So anyway,
we had. The reason why the paint is there is we had to paint. All of us were here early that summer, and we had to paint what was the little nurses' first aid station. We had to paint all the lockers. We were painting so much stuff, and I don't know who decided to paint like this, but yeah.
I'm going to put it on Cato.
Yeah, let's put it on Cato. But
make him defend himself later.
It's sealed in, and it'll be like a time capsule.
Yes.
At some point, and they'll peel that off.
So it's still there. It's still there. We just covered it in metal.
Yeah.
So it's still there. We didn't paint over it. We didn't mess it up. So I love that. We love the history, and we're so grateful to all of you who've gone before us to carry the baton forward, and that's what we took it from y'all, and now we're trying to keep it going too.
And you guys are doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Keeping it going.
I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.